The massive white ship moved slowly through space, its hull painted with giant red crosses that could be seen from millions of miles away. The UHMS Hippocrates was the largest hospital ship ever built by humans. It was 3 miles long and carried 15,000 doctors, nurses, and medical workers from Earth and human colonies. Dr. Sarah Chen stood on the bridge looking out at the stars through the clear dome above her head. She was the chief medical officer, responsible for all medical care on the ship. Her black hair was pulled back in a tight bun, and her tired eyes showed the stress of working 18-hour days for the past 3 weeks. Dr. Chen, we're getting close to the Kepler 442 system, said Captain Marcus Rodriguez. He was a tall man with gray hair and kind brown eyes. Rodriguez had been flying medical ships for 20 years, and he believed deeply in their mission to help anyone who needed it. Sarah nodded and looked at her tablet. The reports were terrible. 2 alien species were fighting a brutal war in this star system. The HFY Empire and the Zephyrian Collective had been killing each other for 6 months. Millions of civilians were caught in the middle, running from their homes with nothing but the clothes on their backs. How many refugees are we expecting? Sarah asked. The last count was over 50,000, Rodriguez replied. Humans, Vorthax, Zephyrians, and at least 12 other species. They're all packed into refugee camps on the outer planets. No medical care, not enough food, and winter is coming to 3 of those worlds. Sarah felt her heart grow heavy. This was why she became a doctor, to help people when they needed it most. It didn't matter if they were human or alien, friend or enemy. Pain was pain, and suffering was suffering. The Hippocrates was specially built for missions like this. It had 200 operating rooms, 5,000 hospital beds, and medical equipment that was the most advanced in known space. The ship also carried massive amounts of food, clean water, and medicine. Everything was free for anyone who needed help. Sir, we're getting a transmission from the refugee camp on Kepler 442c, said Lieutenant Wang from the communications station. Put it on screen, Rodriguez ordered. The main screen showed a small, blue-skinned alien with 4 arms. She looked exhausted and scared. Human ship, this is Administrator Zixla from Camp 7. We have over 8,000 wounded here. Our doctors died in the last bombing. Please, we need help immediately. Sarah stepped forward. Administrator Zixla, this is Dr. Chen. We'll be there in 4 hours. Tell your people help is coming. The alien's face showed relief. Thank you, humans. We had heard stories about your hospital ships, but we didn't know if they were true. You really help anyone? Anyone who needs it, Sarah said firmly. Prepare your wounded for transport. We're bringing medical shuttles. As the transmission ended, Sarah turned to her medical teams. The ship's main medical bay was buzzing with activity. Doctors and nurses were preparing for the largest rescue operation in the ship's history. Everyone knew their job and everyone was ready to work. Dr. James Park, the head of surgery, walked over to Sarah. He was young but skilled, having performed over 3,000 operations in the past year. Sarah, I've got all surgical teams ready. The trauma bays are set up for multiple species. We've studied Vorthac and Zephyrian biology for weeks. Good work, James. What about the children's wing? Dr. Martinez has everything ready. We've got toys, games, and entertainment programs downloaded for 17 different species. The kids are going to be scared, but we'll take care of them. Sarah smiled for the first time in days. This was what humans did best. Other species fought wars and conquered planets. Humans healed the wounded and cared for the helpless. It was their gift to the galaxy. The Hippocrates entered the Kepler 442 system with its navigation lights flashing in the universal pattern for medical ships. The pattern was recognized by every spacefaring species. It meant, we are healers, not warriors. We come in peace. On the bridge, Lieutenant Wang was monitoring all communication channels. Captain, I'm picking up military transmissions. Looks like there's a big battle happening near the 4th planet. Both sides are really going at it. Keep us clear of all military zones, Rodriguez ordered. Send out our medical identification on all frequencies. I want every ship in this system to know who we are and why we're here. The medical ID was a special signal that told everyone the ship was there only to help wounded people. According, To the rules of war that most species followed, medical ships were neutral. They couldn't be attacked, and they had to be allowed to do their work. Sarah went down to the main medical bay to check on preparations. The huge room could hold 2,000 patients at once. Hospital beds were arranged in neat rows, each equipped with medical scanners that could work on any known species. The walls were painted in soft colors that were supposed to be calming to most alien species. Nurses were checking supplies and setting up treatment areas. Dr. Lisa Martinez, who ran the children's medical section, was testing translator devices that would let them talk to young aliens in their own languages. Dr. Chen, called Nurse Thompson, an older woman who had been working on hospital ships for 15 years. I've got teams ready for emergency surgery, trauma care, and basic medical needs. The food preparation areas are set up to make meals for all the different species we might encounter. Excellent work, everyone, Sarah announced to the whole medical bay. Remember, we don't take sides in this war. A wounded Vorthak gets the same care as a wounded Zephyrian. A human child gets the same treatment as an alien child. We are here to preserve life, not to judge anyone. The medical staff nodded. They had all volunteered for this mission knowing it would be dangerous and difficult, but they also knew it was the right thing to do. The Hippocrates reached the first refugee camp just as Sarah had promised. The planet below was gray and cold, with thousands of small shelters spread across the surface. Smoke rose from cooking fires, and Sarah could see long lines of people waiting for food and medical care. Medical shuttles are launching now, reported the flight operations officer. First teams will be on the ground in 20 minutes. Sarah watched through the bridge windows as 20 small shuttles left the Hippocrates and headed down to the planet. Each shuttle carried doctors, nurses, medical supplies, and portable hospital equipment. They would set up treatment centers and start bringing the worst cases back to the main ship. Dr. Chen, you should see this, said Dr. Park over the communication system. He was in one of the shuttles heading to the surface. There are thousands of people down here. I've never seen anything like it. Families living in the mud, children crying, old people too weak to stand. But they're all looking up at our ship with hope in their eyes. Sarah felt tears in her own eyes. This was why she became a doctor. This was why the Hippocrates existed. In a galaxy full of war and hatred, humans offered something different. They offered hope. Bring them all home, James, she said quietly. Every single one of them. 3 days had passed since the Hippocrates arrived at the refugee camps. The great hospital ship was now filled with over 40,000 patients from 17 different species. The medical bays were packed, but everyone was getting the care they needed. Dr. Sarah Chen walked through the children's ward, checking on the youngest patients. Small alien children slept peacefully in beds that adjusted to their specific body types. Human nurses sat beside Vorthak youngsters, reading them stories through translation devices. Zephyrian children, who looked like small butterflies, fluttered weakly around specially designed play areas. Dr. Chen called Dr. Martinez, hurrying over with a smile on her face. You need to see this. The little Vorthak girl in bed 15 just spoke her first words since the bombing. She asked for her mother. Sarah felt her heart warm. These small victories made all the hard work worth it. Have we found her mother? Yes, she's in surgery right now with Dr. Park. She should be fine. They'll be together by tomorrow. Sarah nodded and continued her rounds. The ship's corridors were busy with medical staff, patients walking around as they recovered and families staying close to their loved ones. The Hippocrates had become a small city floating in space, filled with people from across the galaxy. On the bridge, Captain Rodriguez was reviewing the day's reports. The rescue operation was going better than expected. His crew had transported medical supplies to 12 different refugee camps and brought the most serious cases aboard the ship. Captain, said Lieutenant Wang from the communications station, I'm picking up some strange signals. Looks like a ship just dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the system. Rodriguez looked at the main screen. A red dot appeared on the star map, moving slowly toward their position. What kind of ship? It's big, sir. Really big. The computer says it's a Vorthak battle cruiser. The Blood Talon commanded by Admiral Crixith. Rodriguez felt a chill run down his spine. The Blood Talon was famous throughout this sector of space. Admiral Crixith was known for his brutal tactics and hatred of anyone who wasn't Vorthak. But even he wouldn't attack a medical ship. No one did that. Send them our medical identification signal, Rodriguez ordered. Make sure they know we're a hospital ship with wounded civilians aboard. Already transmitting, sir. But they're not responding to our signals. In his command center aboard the Blood Talon, Admiral Crixith stared at the massive white ship ahead of him. The alien was tall and gray with sharp teeth and cold black eyes that showed no mercy. He had been fighting wars for 30 years and believed that strength was the only thing that mattered. Admiral, said his weapons officer, the human ship is broadcasting medical identification codes. They're claiming to be a hospital ship. Crixith made a sound like an angry growl. Lies. Our intelligence reports say the humans are giving advanced medical technology to the Zephyrians. That's how they're healing their soldiers so quickly and sending them back to fight us. Sir, we can see thousands of life signs aboard that ship. Many appear to be civilians, including children. More lies, Crixith snarled. The humans are weak and soft. They use mercy as a weapon, making our enemies stronger while pretending to be neutral. Today we end their interference in this war. Back on the Hippocrates, alarms began sounding throughout the ship. The bridge crew watched in horror as the Blood Talon's weapons powered up. Captain, shouted Wong, they're targeting us. I'm reading weapon lock. Rodriguez couldn't believe what he was hearing. Open all communication channels. Tell them we have Vortex civilians aboard. Tell them we're here under medical neutrality. But before Wang could send the message, the Blood Talon fired its first salvo. Powerful energy beams struck the Hippocrates, tearing through the communication array and part of the engine section. The great ship shuddered and alarms screamed throughout every corridor. Dr. Chen was thrown against a wall as the lights flickered. Around her, children began crying as nurses tried to calm them and keep them safe. All medical personnel, this is not a drill. Rodriguez's voice came over the ship's speakers. We are under attack. Begin emergency evacuation procedures immediately. Sarah couldn't understand what was happening. Medical ships were never attacked. It went against everything that civilized species believed. She ran toward the main medical bay, helping injured people as more weapons fire shook the ship. Dr. Park's voice came over her communicator, filled with panic. Sarah, they hit the surgical wing. We've got doctors and patients trapped under debris. I need every available medic down here now. Throughout the ship, the crew worked frantically to save lives. Nurses carried children toward escape pods while doctors tried to move patients who were too sick to walk. The Hippocrates had escape pods that could hold 50,000 people, but getting everyone to them would take time they might not have. Admiral Crixith watched the damage to the human ship and felt satisfied. His officers looked nervous, but none of them dared to question him. They had followed him through dozens of battles, and they knew his anger was terrible when anyone opposed him. Sir, said the weapons officer quietly, should we contact them and demand their surrender? No, Crixith replied coldly. We destroy them completely. No witnesses, no survivors. The galaxy will learn that helping our enemies brings death. The Blood Talon fired again, this time targeting the ship's center section. The energy beams punched through the hull and hit the children's medical ward directly. The explosion was horrible. In seconds, 200 young aliens and 50 human medical workers were killed instantly. Dr. Martinez, who had dedicated her life to caring for sick children, died while trying to shield a small Zephyrian girl from the blast. Sarah felt the explosion through the ship's frame and knew immediately what had happened. The children's ward was gone. All those innocent lives, both the patients and the people trying to help them, were dead because someone had chosen to ignore every rule of civilized warfare. Tears streamed down her face as she helped evacuate the remaining patients. Around her, other medical workers cried as they worked, but they didn't stop trying to save lives. Even facing death themselves, they kept helping others. Sarah, Dr. Park's voice came through her communicator filled with pain. I'm trapped in Surgical Bay 7. The ceiling collapsed. There are 12 patients here who can't be moved. We're not going to make it to the escape pods. I'm coming to get you, Sarah replied, but even as she said it, she knew it was probably too late. Captain Rodriguez made the hardest decision of his life. With tears in his eyes, he activated the ship's emergency beacon. The quantum transmitter would instantly send a message to Earth, telling them what had happened to the Hippocrates and everyone aboard her. The message was simple. Hospital ship Hippocrates under attack by Vorthak battle cruiser Blood Talon. Admiral Crixith commanding. 15,000 medical personnel and 40,000 civilian patients aboard. Request immediate assistance. We are dying here. The blood talon fired a third time, and this time the weapon struck the ship's main power core. The explosion tore the Hippocrates apart from the inside. The great white ship, which had saved millions of lives across the galaxy, broke into pieces and burned in the cold vacuum of space. Admiral Crixith watched the destruction with satisfaction. The humans had learned that their false mercy would not be tolerated. The galaxy belonged to the strong, not to the weak who wasted their time healing their enemies. But as the debris field spread through space, 3 small escape pods managed to get away from the dying ship. Inside those pods were 847 survivors, doctors, nurses, patients, and children who had witnessed the most terrible crime in galactic history. They carried with them the story of what had happened to the Hippocrates. And that story would soon reach Earth, where 12 billion humans would learn that someone had attacked their healers and murdered their children. The galaxy was about to discover what happened when humanity's mercy was repaid with massacre. The emergency beacon from the Hippocrates reached Earth in less than a second through quantum communication. The message appeared on screens in the Global Defense Council headquarters, where Admiral Elena Vasquez was reviewing routine patrol reports. Elena was a small woman with steel-gray hair and eyes that had seen too much war. She had commanded Earth's defense forces for 10 years, keeping humanity safe while they focused on their role as the galaxy's healers. When she read the message from Captain Rodriguez, she felt something cold and terrible grow in her chest. "Get me President Chen on secure communication. Now," she ordered her aide. Within minutes, President Chen appeared on the main screen. He was Dr. Sarah Chen's older brother, and Elena dreaded having to tell him what had happened to his sister's ship. "Admiral, what's so urgent that you're using emergency channels?" the president asked. Elena took a deep breath. "Sir, the Hippocrates has been destroyed. A Vorthak battlecruiser attacked without warning. 15,000 medical personnel and 40,000 civilian patients are dead. We have 3 escape pods with survivors heading toward the nearest human colony." President Chen's face went completely white. For a moment, he couldn't speak. When he finally found his voice, it was barely a whisper. "Sarah is my sister?" "We don't know yet, sir. The survivor list won't be available until the escape pods arrive at Kepler Station. But, Mr. President, this changes everything. They attacked a hospital ship. They murdered our doctors and nurses while they were trying to save lives." President Chen closed his eyes and was quiet for a long moment. When he opened them again, Elena saw something she had never seen before. The kind, peaceful man who led Earth's government was gone, replaced by someone filled with cold fury. "Call an emergency meeting of the Global Council. Contact every human colony, every space station, every ship in our fleet. I want everyone to know what happened." "And Elena?" "Yes, sir." "Activate Project Retribution." Elena felt her blood run cold. Project Retribution was humanity's most secret defense program. For 50 years, while the galaxy saw humans as peaceful healers and diplomats, Earth had been quietly preparing for the day when someone would attack them. Hidden shipyards and asteroid belts had been building warships. Secret research stations had been developing weapons technology that was decades ahead of anything used by other species. Most aliens thought humans were weak because they spent their time healing instead of fighting. They were about to learn how wrong they were. Within hours, the news of the Hippocrates spread across human space like wildfire. On Earth, 12 billion people watched in shock as the story was broadcast on every news channel. Video messages from the survivors showed the terrible destruction of the great hospital ship. In the recordings, a badly injured Dr. Sarah Chen spoke from her hospital bed on Kepler Station. Her face was covered with bandages and her voice was weak, but her words were clear. "The children's ward was destroyed first," she said, tears streaming down her face. 200 young aliens and 50 of our people, murdered while they slept. Dr. Martinez died trying to protect a little girl who couldn't have been more than 5 years old. Captain Rodriguez stayed on the bridge until the end, trying to save as many people as he could. The recordings were played over and over across human space. In the colonies, on space stations, in the great cities of Earth, people watched and wept, but their tears quickly turned to anger. For the first time in human history, every colony and every government spoke with one voice. The Earth Federation, the Mars Republic, the Outer Colonies Alliance, and dozens of smaller human groups all agreed on one thing. This attack on innocent medical personnel could not go unpunished. Admiral Vasquez stood in the secret command center deep beneath the mountains of Colorado. Around her, hundreds of officers worked at control stations that had been hidden from the galaxy for decades. Massive screens showed star maps with the positions of human ships that most people didn't even know existed. "Admiral," reported Colonel Singh, her chief of staff, "all Retribution assets are responding. We have battle fleets moving in from the Oort Cloud shipyards, the Titan construction facilities, and the hidden bases in the asteroid belt. Total strength, over 2,000 ships." Elena nodded grimly. The aliens would be shocked to learn that humanity had built the most powerful space fleet in the galaxy, while pretending to be peaceful healers. Every ship was equipped with weapons and defensive systems that were generations ahead of anything the Vorthak or any other species possessed. "What about our intelligence assets?" Elena asked. "All agents are reporting in. We have complete information on Vorthak military positions, supply lines, communication networks, and command structures. Our people have been watching them for years." Elena smiled coldly. While aliens saw human diplomats and doctors, they hadn't noticed the human spies, traitors, and researchers who had been quietly gathering information throughout the galaxy. Humanity knew the strengths and weaknesses of every major alien military. On the bridge of the Earth battleship Vengeance, Captain Lisa Park received her orders. She was Dr. James Park's older sister, and she had watched the recordings of the Hippocrates destruction with growing rage. Her ship was one of 12 massive battleships that had been secretly built over the past decade. "Captain," her weapons officer reported, "all systems are ready. The new quantum torpedoes are loaded and armed. The antimatter cannons are charged." "Good," Captain Park replied. "Set course for the Kepler 442 system. It's time to show the galaxy what happens when you murder human medical personnel." Across human space, the fleet was gathering. Ships emerged from hidden bases that had been secret for decades. The aliens had always wondered how humans could afford to build so many hospital ships and research vessels. Now they would learn the answer. Because humans had also been building the most advanced military fleet in the galaxy. President Chen addressed the human people from the Global Council chambers on Earth. Behind him stood representatives from every human colony and organization. For the first time in centuries, humanity was completely united. "My fellow humans," he began, his voice steady despite his grief. "Yesterday, our healers were murdered while trying to save lives. Our doctors and nurses died while caring for alien children. This attack was not just against the crew of the Hippocrates. It was an attack against everything we stand for as a species." The president paused, looking directly into the camera. "For generations, we have been the galaxy's doctors and peacemakers. We have healed the wounded and fed the hungry, regardless of their species or their politics. We have asked for nothing in return except the right to help those who suffer." His voice grew harder. "That right has been violated in the most terrible way possible. The Vorthak Empire has chosen to repay our mercy with murder. They have shown the galaxy that they believe healing the innocent deserves death." President Chen stepped forward, and when he spoke again, his words carried the weight of 12 billion angry humans. "Today, we answer their brutality with justice. Today we show the galaxy that while humans choose to heal, we are also capable of war. We will find everyone responsible for this massacre. We will bring them to justice, and we will make sure that no one ever again dares to attack those who dedicate their lives to preserving life." As the president's speech ended, Admiral Vasquez gave the order that would change galactic history forever. "All units, this is Control. Operation Retribution is now active. Find the Blood Talon. Find Admiral Crixith. Show them what humanity does to those who murder our healers." Across the galaxy, human warships began moving toward Vorthak space. The aliens were about to learn that the gentle healers of Earth were also the most dangerous warriors the galaxy had ever seen. Admiral Crixith stood on the bridge of the Blood Talon, feeling pleased with himself. 3 weeks had passed since he destroyed the human hospital ship, and there had been no response from Earth. The humans were even weaker than he had thought. "Admiral," his communications officer reported, "we're receiving orders from High Command. They want us to join the main fleet for the attack on the Zephyrian homeworld." "Excellent," Crixth replied. "Tell them we'll be there in 2 days. After we crush the Zephyrian capital, this war will finally be over." But as the Blood Talon changed course toward the fleet gathering point, strange things began happening throughout Vorthak space. Communication stations went silent one by one. Supply convoys disappeared without sending distress signals. Military bases stopped reporting their status. At first, Vorthak commanders thought these were just equipment failures or small Zephyrian raids. They had no idea that human ships were systematically destroying their entire military infrastructure with surgical precision. Captain Lisa Park stood on the bridge of the battleship Vengeance as it approached a major Vorthak supply depot. The space station was huge, providing fuel and weapons to dozens of Vorthak fleets. Taking it out would cripple their ability to continue the war. "Captain," her tactical officer reported, "we have 17 Vorthak ships defending the station. They haven't seen us yet." "Fire," Captain Park ordered coldly. The Vengeance unleashed its quantum torpedoes, weapons that used technology the Vorthaks had never seen before. The torpedoes moved faster than light itself, appearing inside the enemy ships before their crews even knew they were under attack. In 30 seconds, all 17 defending ships were destroyed. The supply station tried to surrender, but Captain Park was in no mood for mercy. Her brother had died on the Hippocrates, murdered while trying to save lives. She watched without emotion as her ship's antimatter cannons reduced the entire station to glowing atoms. Similar attacks were happening across 17 star systems. Human battle fleets appeared without warning, destroyed their targets with overwhelming force, and vanished before reinforcements could arrive. The Vorthak Empire's military might was being taken apart piece by piece, but the humans were careful to avoid civilian targets. Every attack was planned to minimize harm to non-combatants. When human ships encountered Vorthak civilian vessels, they were warned to stay away from military zones but were not harmed. Admiral Crixith began receiving panicked reports from across the Empire. "Sir, the supply depot at Kappa 7 has been destroyed. All defending ships lost. The communications hub at Vorthak Prime is gone, sir. We've lost contact with 12 fleet groups. Admiral, our main shipyard at Proxima Vorthak is under attack by unknown vessels. The defending fleet is reporting weapons they've never seen before." Crixth felt cold fear growing in his chest. "Who is attacking us? The Zephyrians don't have this kind of technology." His intelligence officer, a young alien who had always been afraid of the brutal admiral, spoke quietly. "Sir, our agents are reporting human ships in all the attack zones. Ships we've never seen before using weapons that are decades ahead of our technology." "Impossible," Crixith roared. "The humans are weak healers. They don't have warships." "Sir," the intelligence officer continued, his voice shaking, "our spies are saying that the humans have been building secret fleets for decades. They think the attack on the hospital ship triggered some kind of massive retaliation plan." For the first time in his life, Admiral Crixith felt real fear. He had built his career on the belief that strength was everything, that mercy was weakness, but the humans were showing him strength beyond anything he had ever imagined. On Earth, Admiral Vasquez watched the battle reports with grim satisfaction. Operation Retribution was going exactly as planned. Human forces had destroyed over 60% of Vorthak military capability without losing a single ship. "Admiral," reported Colonel Singh, "our intelligence networks are reporting panic throughout Vorthak space. Their military commanders don't understand how we're coordinating these attacks." Elena smiled coldly. While aliens had spent centuries fighting each other, humans had developed quantum-encrypted communication systems that allowed instant coordination across the galaxy. Every human ship knew exactly where every other ship was and what it was doing. "What's the status on finding Admiral Crixith?" Elena asked. "The Blood Talon is moving toward the main Vorthak fleet gathering at Sigma Draconis. Our ships are already in position to intercept." Elena nodded. Crixith was the primary target. He had given the order to destroy the Hippocrates, and he would pay for that decision with his life. The Blood Talon arrived at Sigma Draconis to find the Vorthak fleet in chaos. Half the expected ships were missing, destroyed by human attacks on their supply bases. The remaining vessels were low on fuel and ammunition. "Admiral," his fleet commander reported, "we've lost contact with most of our outer defense networks. We don't know where the human ships are or when they'll attack next." Crixith looked at the tactical display showing his reduced fleet. For 30 years he had commanded the most feared battle group in Vorthak space. Now he was running from an enemy he had underestimated completely. "All ships, battle formation," he ordered. "If the humans want a fight, we'll give them one." But the humans didn't attack the main fleet directly. Instead, they struck at the shipyards and fuel depots that supplied it. One by one, the Vorthak ships were forced to withdraw as they ran out of supplies. The great fleet that was supposed to conquer the Zephyrian home world was reduced to a few dozen. Vessels limping back toward Vorthak territory. Captain. Park's battle group finally cornered. The Blood Talon near the edge of Vorthak space. The alien ship was alone, its escort vessels destroyed or abandoned. Crixith faced 5 human battleships with weapons that could destroy his vessel in seconds. Vorthak ship, this is Captain Park of the Earth battleship Vengeance, Lisa said over the communication channel. You are responsible for the murder of 15,000 medical personnel and 40,000 civilian patients. Surrender immediately. On the Blood Talon's bridge, Admiral Crixith stared at the human ships surrounding him. Their sleek white hulls were marked with red crosses, the same symbol that had been painted on the hospital ship he destroyed. I am Admiral Crixith of the Vorthak Empire, he replied, trying to keep the fear out of his voice. I do not surrender to inferior species. Captain Park's voice was ice cold when she responded. Admiral, my brother Dr. James Park was aboard the Hippocrates. He died trying to save Vorthak children in your ship's medical bay. You murdered him while he was healing your own people. Crixith felt his world collapse around him. He had always told his officers that the humans were weak because they wasted time helping their enemies. But the ship he destroyed had been carrying wounded Vorthak civilians, including children. You have 30 seconds to surrender, Captain Park continued. If you do not, we will destroy your ship with all hands aboard. Admiral Crixith looked around his bridge at officers who had followed him for years. They were all staring at him, waiting for his decision. For the first time in his life, the brutal admiral realized that his strength meant nothing against an enemy with superior technology and absolute determination. I surrender, he said quietly. The words tasted like poison in his mouth, but he knew he had no choice. The humans had destroyed his empire's military power in 3 weeks. They had shown mercy to civilians while systematically hunting down everyone responsible for attacking their healers. As Vorthak troops were taken aboard human ships, Admiral Crixith understood the terrible mistake he had made. He had attacked humanity's healers thinking it would show strength. Instead, he had awakened something far more dangerous than any Vorthak warrior, the fury of a peaceful species that had been pushed too far. 3 months after the destruction of the Hippocrates, the war was over. The Vorthak Empire had surrendered completely after losing 90% of their military forces. Admiral Crixith sat in a detention cell aboard the human battleship Vengeance, waiting for his trial. The galaxy watched in amazement as humanity transformed from peaceful healers into the most efficient military force anyone had ever seen. But what shocked the other species even more was what humans did after their victory. President Chen stood before the Galactic Council on the neutral world of Nexus Prime. Representatives from hundreds of species had gathered to witness something that had never happened before, the trial of someone who attacked a medical ship. Members of the council, President Chen began, we are here today not for revenge but for justice. The attack on the Hippocrates was not just a crime against humanity. It was a crime against every civilized species that believes medical personnel should be protected. Behind him, massive screens showed recordings from the survivors of the hospital ship. Dr. Sarah Chen, still recovering from her injuries, testified about the children who died in the attack. Nurse Thompson described how doctors and nurses died while trying to evacuate their patients. The audience included representatives from every species that had lost civilians aboard the Hippocrates. Zephyrian delegates wept as they heard about their children who died in the human medical wards. Even some Vorthak civilians were present, mourning family members who had been killed when their own military attacked the ship trying to heal them. When Admiral Crixith was brought into the courtroom, he looked nothing like the proud warrior who had destroyed the hospital ship. The months in human custody had shown him recordings of every person who died because of his decision. He had been forced to learn the names of the doctors, nurses, and patients he had murdered. Admiral Crixith, said Judge Harrison, a stern human woman who had been chosen to lead the tribunal, you stand accused of crimes against galactic civilization. How do you plead? Crixith looked around the courtroom at the faces of people from dozens of species. All of them were staring at him with expressions of disgust and anger. For the first time in his life, he understood that strength without honor meant nothing. Guilty, he said quietly. I am guilty of all charges. The courtroom erupted in shocked whispers. No one had expected the proud Vorthak admiral to admit his crime so easily. Judge Harrison called for silence. "Admiral, the court sentences you to death. However, before that sentence is carried out, you will serve aboard human hospital ships for 1 full year, helping to care for the wounded and sick. You will see what the people you murdered dedicated their lives to doing." Crixth nodded. He had expected to die, but the humans wanted him to understand the magnitude of his crime first. He would spend his final year learning what it meant to heal instead of kill. But the trial was only the beginning of humanity's response to the attack. Across former Vorthak territory, human medical ships were establishing permanent aid stations. The same species that had just demonstrated devastating military power was now using that power to force peace and healing. Dr. Sarah Chen stood on the bridge of the new hospital ship Hippocrates II, looking out at a former Vorthak military base that was being converted into a medical center. Her injuries from the attack had healed, but the emotional scars would never completely go away. "Doctor," said her new assistant, a young Vorthak named Zixal, who had volunteered to work with human medical teams. "The first group of patients is ready for treatment." Sarah nodded and walked toward the medical bay. The patients were former Vorthak soldiers who had been wounded in the war. Many of them had fought against human forces and expected to be treated poorly. Instead, they received the same high-quality medical care that humans provided to everyone. "Why?" asked one wounded Vorthak soldier, as Sarah checked his injuries. "Why are you helping us after what we did to your ship?" Sarah looked into his eyes and saw genuine confusion. "Because that's what we do," she said simply. "We heal people. It doesn't matter who they are or what they've done. Pain is pain, and everyone deserves to be free from it." The soldier stared at her in amazement. He had spent his whole life believing that mercy was weakness. But the humans had shown him that mercy, backed by overwhelming strength, was the most powerful force in the galaxy. Throughout former Vorthak space, similar scenes were playing out. Human medical teams worked alongside reformed Vorthak personnel, teaching them how to heal instead of harm. Former military bases became hospitals. Weapons factories were converted to produce medical equipment. The most dramatic change was in how other species viewed humanity. Before the attack on the Hippocrates, most aliens saw humans as useful but weak, good doctors and diplomats but not important in galactic politics. Now they understood the truth. Humans had chosen to be healers not because they were weak, but because they were strong enough to protect that choice. The same species that built the galaxy's best hospitals had also built its most advanced military. Ambassador Taval of the Andromedian Republic stood before the newly reformed Galactic Council. "The humans have taught us something important," she said to the assembled delegates. "True strength is not the ability to destroy, but the ability to protect those who heal and create." The council unanimously passed the Hippocrates Accords, a new set of laws that made attacking medical personnel a crime punishable by the entire galactic community. Any species that harmed hospital ships or medical workers would face not just human retaliation, but opposition from every civilized world. On Earth, President Chen met with his military commanders to discuss the future. Admiral Vasquez sat across from him, looking tired but satisfied. "Elena, what's the status of our fleet?" the president asked. "All ships are transitioning to their new roles," she replied. "Half will remain as pure military vessels protecting our medical ships and colonies. The other half are being converted into mobile hospitals and research stations." President Chen nodded. "Good. I want the galaxy to know that we prefer to heal, but we're always ready to fight if anyone threatens our healers again." The message was spreading throughout the galaxy. Species that had never worked together before were establishing joint medical programs modeled on human hospital ships. The phrase "Remember the Hippocrates" became a universal symbol, meaning that those who dedicate their lives to helping others must be protected. Dr. Sarah Chen stood at the memorial wall aboard the Hippocrates II, reading the names of everyone who had died in the attack on the original ship. Each name was carved in stone along with the words "They died healing others." "Doctor," said Captain Rodriguez, who had survived the attack and now commanded the new hospital ship, "we're receiving a transmission from the Vorthak government. They want to formally apologize for the attack and request permission to send their own medical personnel for training." Sarah smiled sadly. "Tell them yes, Dr. Martinez would have wanted us to teach them. She believed everyone could learn to heal instead of harm." As the Hippocrates II continued its mission through the galaxy, it carried a new symbol alongside the traditional Red Cross. It was a small blue flower, the same type that had been growing in the children's ward when it was destroyed. The flower represented hope, healing, and the memory of those who died trying to save lives. The galaxy had learned its lesson. Humanity's healers were under the protection of humanity's warriors, and both were united in their mission to preserve life wherever they found it. Admiral Crixth, now serving his sentence aboard a human hospital ship, watched human doctors save the life of a wounded Zephyrian soldier. The same hands that could build weapons capable of destroying entire fleets were now gently healing someone who had once been their enemy. He finally understood what he had attacked when he destroyed the Hippocrates. It wasn't just a ship full of doctors and nurses. It was humanity's greatest gift to the galaxy, the knowledge that strength should be used to protect the weak, and that mercy was not weakness but the highest form of courage. The human species had spoken, and the galaxy would never forget their message: touch our healers and face our warriors. Respect our mission and earn our friendship. The choice was up to everyone else, but humanity would be watching, ready to heal or fight as the situation demanded. The Hippocrates would never be forgotten, and its mission would continue forever.